Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel, review anything and everything. And today we're going to get into the Jurassic World Allosaurus Ruthless Rampage, or Ruthless Rampage Allosaurus. This is part of the Epic Evolution line. Now, from what I've seen, there hasn't been a lot of good Allosauruses as of lately. This is the most latest incarnation. Granted, you're getting one that has a gimmick that might not seem true to your standard Allosaurus because it is a part of the evolution line, and I'll get into that in a moment. But as far as I've seen other versions of Allosaurus that I chose not to get because one, they had outrageous prices at the time, and also two, I felt like some of them seemed oversized and whatnot. This one is a little bit big. I'm going to bring in Owen just for scale. Um, Obviously, you guys already know this is a 3 3/4 inch figure, 3 3/4 inch line. So, as far as this figure goes, I actually like it for your standard line Allosaurus, though, when it comes to size and proportion and whatnot, he is a little bit big in regards to what a normal Allosaurus probably would have been. Now, he does seem to have high legs for his length. Allosaurus is known to be a very lengthy dinosaur, though the tail here is a little has a little bit of bend on the end, but it is pretty. I'll get them all in frame. It is pretty long relative to how a lot of the dinosaurs have been for this line when it comes to the tails. And I'm pretty much jumping straight into the review at this point. Matter of fact, before I dive into the figure, let me just move them aside and show the box really quick. Sorry about that. Okay, you guys just had to adjust the camera angle. Sorry about all the additional that's in frame. But essentially, this is the box here. The box art, you can see back there. It has like the mountains and whatnot. Shows you the action. Now there's an action feature to bring out. This is the evolution aspect of it, which is it brings out these spikes, these spines on his back, which is a subtle evolution. So it doesn't make you feel like it's like a hybrid dinosaur or some kind of crazy thing of that sort. He's got a little wheel that you roll and it makes his mouth move forward and up and down, and op- and open up his mouth. You can see more on that. Evolve for battle. It's showing you like the evolution of just the spikes. Like I said, it's a minor evolution that you won't look at it as like say a hybrid dinosaur like Indominus Rex. So you could still use it as your main Allosaurus, but also be aware of that. I don't know if Allosaurus really had such large spikes on its back, so that is something that's going to be outside of the bounds of a normal Allosaurus. Obviously, you see the other parts of the line where you have like a Triceratops with evolution, and I'm not sure what dinosaur that is. It shows the landscape that they're from. Allosaurus is coming from that kind of landscape right there. And here it shows the scan. We're going to get into that too on the figure. The scan is like the new types of scans where it's on the it's almost like battle damage in terms of the way that you view it. Let's get this Allosaurus back in frame. So we'll show you that real quick here. You can see how now, similar to the more newer editions where they had this on the Red Rex and they also had it on the Indominus Rex, the newer Indominus Rex of the camouflage. And I like this as far as the scan goes because it's kind of reminiscent of battle damage plus getting the scan. Sorry, I just don't have nails at the moment. Second to get something to open this up. There we go. And you could see how it shows like the skin underneath there on the sides. So it's like getting battle damage along with the scan code, which I think is kind of a cool double, double purpose when it comes to that. Now, first we're going to jump into the features, and then I'm going to go into just my review on the actual dinosaur figure himself. So here is the extension of the spikes on its back. They come out very long for just being such a small button adjustment. You can see there's not a lot of movement in that button, not a lot of travel, but yet those spikes come out really long. They're almost double the size that they initiate as. So that's very interesting. And like I said, if you just want your Allosaurus to feel more normal, you could just leave them like that. And for the most part, I mean, you could probably say to yourself or assume that there's a little bit of, spikes coming out the back of its back. But for the most part, when you do this feature, they're uh, super exaggerated. Here, right here, you have this little wheel, and you're able to spin that. Spinning it forward is actually, I think, the way you're supposed to do it. Well, you can do it either way because I'm looking at the package now. It says you can go reverse or forward, but it seems to be harder going forward than it does. I mean, going reverse than it does forward. Forward. Okay, so after playing with the movement, I thought that it was a continuous rolling that you can keep just going forward, and it's not. So you go back, and then you feel resistant, and then you go forward. I don't know how I feel about that mechanism. I thought it was a continuous wheel that you can just keep spinning, and I think that would have been better for the purpose of making sure that it never broke. But the fact that it reaches a limit and then you can't do it anymore, but you don't really know when you're going to reach that limit until you start pushing it, I think that might leave room for it to get damaged. So be careful with that as a feature. As far as his size goes, I think that as Allosaurus, what's interesting about Allosaurus that a lot of people might not realize is Allosaurus was a very long dinosaur, but he's not a very bulky dinosaur. Does this depict that? Well, his legs seem very high for his length, so it almost feels like his proportions feel a little thrown off. Like if he was going to be this length, he should have had shorter legs, or if he's going to have these bigger legs, that he should have been maybe a little longer. But for the most part, it's still not too bad. Obviously, he has the bigger arms than what, say, a T Rex would have because he's got 3 claws, even though proportionate wise, Allosaurus's overall size, I'm not sure if his hands, I guess they fit to about what he would be. But one thing that is definitely thrown off is the head. I don't know if that would be the actual size of Allosaurus' head. It might be a little bit bigger. Here you could see that this head is the equivalent of, we take Owen and assume that he's 6 feet tall. This head is almost looking the same length as a T-Rex, and I will bring in a T-Rex in a few to compare. Um, but you could see that it's roughly about the length of, probably almost like same size as the T-Rex head. And like I said, we'll bring that in a few, but it's the equivalent of almost like 5 feet in terms of the length of the head within scale. Now the teeth are another thing too. The teeth in this figure are definitely oversized. So the plus is they now have them as rubber teeth, which is great that all the figures in the lines are getting that rubber teeth aspect to them, which is great. The negative here, it's just they're huge. These teeth are so big that they're actually just as big as some versions of the T-Rex. And I wouldn't compare this one to the Hammond Collection T-Rex because obviously that line is not the normal line. So it's not going to be, um, like a correct comparison. Even though in general, if you did compare it to that line, this Allosaurus might scale better to it because he would be then a bit smaller than that T-Rex. But say if we're going to compare to one of the mainline ones, and we're going to do that in a bit with the Red Rex, you could see how, even though the Red Rex is a bit smaller of a figure in general compared to even some of the other mainline ones, I definitely would say that the Red Rex, and like I said, I'm going to compare in a moment, his size is definitely makes it look like the Allosaurus is very big. Now, with that being said, though I did mention about the proportions here being a little bit off with the head size and this and that, Allosaurus is actually to most people's surprise, a very long dinosaur at 40 feet long, generally speaking. He's a very long but slender dinosaur weighing 2 tons. So he's not supposed to be not nearly as bulky as a T Rex, probably about the equivalent of about 1/4 the size of a T Rex in terms of bulkiness at 2 tons. And a T Rex can weigh somewhere, you see estimates that say 6 to, I normally see average of 7, but upwards of 8, sometimes even 9, or whatever the case is. So we'll just say about 4 Allosauruses would be the bulk of a T Rex, but lengthwise, a T Rex is roughly about 40 to 45 feet long, somewhere in that range in terms of its maximum. Obviously, there's a bit of a range. And Allosaurus is 40 feet long as his maximum. So they are comparable in length, but just not in bulk. Once again, this is Owen standing next to him. Give me a second as I pull out the tape measure. Now, as always, you guys know, I like to do my little conversion. So we are going to do that. In terms of the scale of what it was scaled to, in terms of how, like, its actual feet and length and whatnot. I'm not expecting this to be anywhere close to 40 feet in its scaling length, because even the Hammond Collection T-Rex is not at that level. But just for something that seems reasonable in its proportions, we come up with. Now, this is looking like 16.5 inches long. And at the hips, it's about 6.5. And if you measure the height of the head, it's 7. We're going to go on both of those figures. So let's see here. So the length we said was 16.5. So he's coming up to 26.4 feet long within his scale. And for his height at the hips is 6 inches. I'm sorry. Yes, it was 6 inches. I like to do this real time. He's 9.6 feet at the hips, and at his head, he is 11.2 feet high. So what's interesting is, after doing some research, I come across the same paradox I had mentioned in a previous video about the Tyrannosaurus Rex, where you see heights that will say a T-Rex is 18 feet tall, and then you would see things that say a T-Rex is like 14 feet tall based on the hips or whatever the case is. So I don't know what's considered real. I spoke to my Echo a little while ago, the Amazon Echo, and asked it a little bit before doing this video, and it told me that Allosaurus was 17 feet tall, which, if it is, that's definitely measuring probably at the top of the head, fully, standing up as tall as it can, which I don't even know if that would be true. So I just giving you the measurements right now, roughly about 11.5 feet at the head, and a little bit smaller, about 9.5 feet at the hip area, to a 6-foot person. So there you go with that size right there. And then let me bring in the other T-Rex for comparison in its size. So here we go with the Red Rex. And I know when, one figure is behind the other, sometimes it's hard to get a good sense of, where they fall in terms of their scale and whatnot. Make sure that he's standing correctly and that his feet are leveled. Now, as I told you, the Allosaurus was 16.5. And just to give you, because you can't really see it on the camera, so I'll give you the actual length of the Red Rex. He is about 20. He's about 20, just shy of 21, so it's like 20.5 maybe. It's very hard to tell, but about almost 21, like right there next to 21. So we're just going to give him the 21. So 21 versus 16.5. So that is to give you a sense of their length. And like I said, Allosaurus is 7 feet high, 7 inches high, and the T-Rex is a little bit about like just under 8.5, so about 8.25 at the head, while Allosaurus is 7 at the head. So you can see there's definitely a difference in size comparison. The T-Rex head is actually larger than I thought that it was in comparison. So I guess in that aspect, if the Allosaurus's head might be a decent size in regards to accuracy the size of its head, because the T-Rex is, well, I don't think it would be that close to a T-Rex, to be honest with you, with the bulkiness of a T-Rex versus it. I don't think it would be that size. So I still do think it's oversized, even though it is smaller than the T-Rex, which is great that it is smaller than the T-Rex, but I don't think that it is would be completely accurate in size. But it's still not a bad Allosaurus. He's kind of big in comparison to the T-Rex. I'm not saying he's big in comparison to himself, because like I said before, the measurements of a full-grown Allosaurus would probably be somewhere about maybe 14 feet high and about 40 feet long. But in regards to comparison to another T-Rex, it's definitely a little bit big, and you can see those teeth, how long those teeth are. They're individualized and they're very long. They're nice because they're rubber. That's great that they upgraded them like that, but they are very big. They are definitely oversized because they are bigger than the T-Rex's teeth here. And obviously we know Allosaurus' teeth would never be bigger than a T-Rex's teeth. You see you got this little scratch marks here on the face for extra detail. So that in itself is a cool little feature. I'm going to move that T-Rex out of the way. As far as the feet go, the feet actually seem to be, for the size of the figure, probably pretty well proportioned. I will give it that. For the size of the figure, they're pretty well proportioned. I'm going to grab another figure to throw into the mix. This is going to be the Carnotaurus uh, from the Hammond Collection line, and I'm only doing that to just show. Obviously, Allosaurus would be bigger than a Carnotaurus. That's unmistakable. But the proportion of the feet, I want to hone in on how the proportion of the Carnotaurus feet are very well proportioned. And the Allosaurus feet, though they are a bit bigger, because, this is not a Hammond collection, but for the size of this figure, they're not that much off from it. And he is supposed to be a bigger dinosaur in general. So I'm glad that they didn't give him oversized feet, and they could have easily done that, and they really didn't. They're not that much bigger, so that's pretty good. I will congratulate on that. To say for a main line and not a Hammond collection line, that's not bad in that regard. I think this Allosaurus's proportions are very passable, being that it's a main line versus, say, being a Hammond collection. In its length too, it is, like I said, it's pretty decent, because most of the main line used to be very short in their length. This one's tail, this little extra extension, is not bad, because it actually makes him around the same length as the Carnotaurus. And like I said before, the Carnotaurus is like perfect in its proportions. Now, the Allosaurus, though it's the same length as the Carnotaurus, but for the main line, that's not bad. So you understand, I'm coming at a perspective of, it's not bad for the main line. There are a lot of upgrades of it for the main line. It's not going to be comparable to a Hammond collection, but for the main line, it's not bad. Keep in mind, the main line is also more geared towards kids being able to play. So that's a factor there. And then one last comparison. We have the Hammond Collection Rex. I'm only throwing this one in the mix because I want to show how. Let's see, get this a little back on camera. All right, you guys have to switch up the camera angle completely to get these ones to fit. So the reason why I wanted to show this with the Hammond Collection one is because, for scale with the Hammond Collection Rex, and this one's jawline is a little funny. This was a secondary one that like kids play with, and the original one I did a review on was mine. So the Hammond Collection T-Rex is bigger, so obviously within that scale, the Allosaurus scales a little bit better with this T-Rex, in terms of showing that he's a lot smaller than this T-Rex versus The red one, which I would consider more of a mainline. I consider, like I mentioned in the past, I consider him premium, but I also consider him still a little more part of the main line and not so much a more of like the way that the Ham collection is a higher quality for, you know, like collectors for display and less toy like. So obviously, because the Red Rex has electronic features as well and whatnot. So my point to that is the scaling of this one is a lot bigger for this Rex, and so it might scale better with the Allosaurus, being that he does dominate the Allosaurus in size in this aspect. So he might be good for you to stand next to your Hammond collection Tyrannosaurus Rex when it comes to scaling. Yeah, so just wanted to depict that for you guys. So if you guys have any kind of comments, just throw them down below. Like I said, I definitely recommend this Allosaurus because to me, of the Allosauruses that I've seen on the market, and then I haven't been in the market for as long as some old time collectors, I think right now, currently, this is the best Allosaurus that you could purchase at the moment until either they come out with a Hammond collection or a better mainline Allosaurus. With that being said, as always, you guys like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.